and welcome to the School of Cloud, where we're learning the cloud 1 week at a time. Now this week, we're talking about service accounts and virtual private cloud networks in Google Cloud. Your hosts tonight are myself, Jeff Williams. I'm the Google Tech Lead over at UC Berkeley, and Elaine Chan. Elaine?
Hi everyone, my name is Elaine. I'm a junior at Western Michigan University, majoring in computer science. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. GCP, Google Cloud Platform, that's what we're learning about. There's a whole bunch of different services that are part of GCP, that there's a bunch of different things to learn. And that's why we're taking our time and we're learning those things. Every week, we're coming back with more events and more content to work through so we can have a chance to try these things hands-on to get more familiar with them. Now, our goal last week, this week, and the next week is to get this badge, Security and Identity Fundamentals. You can go one step further with one extra lab to get the Ensure Access and Identity badge. So both of those you can see on your Qwiklabs when you have your public profile. Also, you can put those on your LinkedIn. Okay, now let's get started with this cloud study jam. So that security and identity fundamental. So service accounts are a special kind of account. They're an account you would use to log in as kind of like as a project or as a programmatic thing and not as a regular person. Sometimes it's behind the scenes when you're using something that's a managed service that they're providing, and it actually will go and it'll create and use lots of different service accounts to have the minimum access to different things so they can be really safe, instead of having using an admin account that can do everything, but then it's a really risky thing if you lose. So they're pretty interesting. I've had to use them a number of times, and you'll end up interacting with them as you're working with the cloud. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to create some service accounts. We'll create a VM and connect it to one of the service account. We'll use BigQuery with a service account, and then we'll do a query so we'll connect to BigQuery with it, and then we'll run a query. We're going to right click and choose Open in Incognito window. And now check this window. Make sure that on the far right, when it says incognito, that it just says incognito and not incognito 2 or more. If you have more than one, if it says 2 or 3 or 4, you'll want to close those other ones and then close this one, and then like this, and then go and open fresh. Right click, choose Open in Incognito instead of using your own account. So I'll click, this is perfect. I'll click next, and then it's going to ask for the password. I'll Alt Tab on the keyboard to get back to this other screen so I can copy that password, and then I want to see the instructions. So what do they want us to do next? They'll want us to run gcloud auth list in a Google Cloud Shell. So I'm going to open a Cloud Shell and then run gcloud auth list. So I'll paste in the password, and I'll do this with me, and then hit next. Wait for it to pop up the terms of service agreement, and then we can just click agree on that. And then up here in the top right, that's where that Cloud Shell button is. So we're going to activate Cloud Shell, and I'll just click on that once with the left mouse button. That opens in the bottom, and it has a continue button. Click that. And to make some more room for it, I'll make it a little taller, and I'll free up some space to the side by clicking this navigation menu button to get that to disappear. Okay, now we've got a lot of space. So in here, we have to do gcloud auth list, right? And it's going to ask for permission for this little window down here to make an API call, basically for the program that we're running in there to talk to the rest of our account, of our Google Cloud Platform account. And we said, yes, that's absolutely fine. Now it proved that we're the right account. We're this student 03. Now your student number is going to be different than mine. And then I've got the password. I want the next command they want. gcloud config list project, so that we can see the project ID. Okay, copy that. And come back, right click, you can paste that, hit enter. It's an account that belongs to an application or virtual machine instead of a user. It's kind of a thing, not a person. So those service accounts are used to call Google's application programming interfaces for a service instead of having users typing in their username and password for things. So here they give an example of a cloud, of a compute engine virtual machine running as a service account, so then it can access different things in Google Cloud that you give specific access to. If that sounds confusing or weird, don't worry. We're going to learn right about that now. When we make a new cloud project, they create a service account by default with the project number and then -compute and then at developer.gserviceaccount.com. And then the project ID at appspot.gserviceaccount if it was an App Engine application. Okay, now there are some that Google controls, and you'll some service accounts that Google controls, you'll generally leave those alone, but we can take a look at those and see them in the interface. And then those ones will say cloud services instead of saying developer and instead of saying appspot. So if we're going to make one, you can do that graphically, or you can do that in the command line. They're going to have us do an example in the command line, and we're going to call it my service account. All right, and my SA123. So my service account 123 will be the name of it, and then the display name will be my service account. So copy this command, come back to the Cloud Shell, run that, and that will make a service account for us in the identity and access management part, and then under service accounts. So a lot of these commands, they have a logical order, left to right, of the G Cloud, and then what part of the cloud, and then what task you want to do, or like a subpart, I suppose, and then what task you want to do, like create, update, delete, things like that, rename. So it created a service account for us. Okay, so you can give the service account user role for a service account if you want it to let it be a resource. I'll copy this. This one says G-Cloud projects, all right, add an identity and access management policy binding, like a connection between the project ID, and that'll be the same as this project ID over here that they gave us with the new account. Tie that to a service account called my SA123. Wait a second. Do you remember when we made that one? Just a second ago, right? Up just a couple commands above. So we made that service account, and we're going to tie those two things together. They had said something about that right up here, right? If you wanted to control who can start the VM, you could grant that service account user role. So it looks like we're going to be doing something like that, right? Got this service account, connecting it to a policy. Oh no, this one's the one about the storage admin. So this one's giving the storage role. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now that one has viewer, storage admin, owner, editor. Wow. It connected a whole bunch of things from the service account, BigQuery admin, cloud build. So they actually gave a lot of different access with that. All right. Check our progress. All right, so it gave us the access. It was a longer list than just this list here, though. This says owner and editor. They'd given us owner, editor, storage admin, a viewer, and some other access as well. Now, those other access they gave us are these weird accounts at Qwiklabs, right? Qwiklabs here, Qwiklabs there, some service account ones, another Qwiklabs one. So some of those aren't what we were doing right now. Some of those are ones that are there, part of how Qwiklabs platform works. So I'm going to ignore those, and you can safely too. Now, last week we learned about owner, editor, and viewer roles that are primitive roles. Those roles are just like the most basic. They were part of Google Cloud before this identity and access management system that they have added. And then there's predefined rules that are really granular, really specific. And we looked, and there were thousands and thousands of possible roles that you could give some tiny little bit of access. And then you can make your own custom role that combines some of those different specific access together into a larger role that you define yourselves. So we learned a little bit about that last week. You can check it out in the recording from last week. And of course, you can visit the page that lists there. So one thing you could do is you could just hold Control and click on that, and then you could go and read that later. Now we're going to use the client library to access BigQuery from a service account. Okay. So they're going to have us go and create a service account in the GUI this time. And this is usually how I end up making them. Usually I'm following instructions from a vendor that says how we need to add a service account to do a certain specific thing. So I've done that a number of times before. And so we'll go to IAM and admin. In the navigation menu, we'll click service accounts and then create service account. Because I know it's going to want it, I'm going to copy this. So I'll be ready to paste this later, this BigQuery Qwiklab. And then we'll go over to that window. So navigation, IAM and admin, click on that. Now service accounts is over here on the left, right under organizational policies. Click that. And then let's see, what's that? Okay. Sounds good. So there's 3 accounts here. There's a default service account for Compute Engine. There's a Qwiklabs user service account. That must be part of what they're doing, because that was created 5 days ago. So that was something that Qwiklabs, kind of an internal thing for them. And then there's this My Service account that has no keys. That My SA123, we made that one. So we're going to make a new service account. That was what the instructions said. And we'll paste in was it the name? The name. Paste BigQuery-Qwiklab. Now notice that it copied it down to the service account ID. And as long as that name isn't taken, you could leave it that, or you could change it to something else. It would have to be taken within that project. So each project has their own namespace. So you could still have multiple projects, each have the same service account, as long as the right-hand side is different, because of that project ID. Okay, so we want to set that up as a BigQuery data viewer and BigQuery user. Okay, BigQuery data viewer. So continue. BigQuery, BigQuery, BigQuery. All right, so scroll down in this list under select a role, right? And then we'll look for BigQuery. And then we've got, let's see, it was BigQuery data viewer. There it is. Oops. And add another. So we wanted BigQuery user, I think it was. Double check, and that looks right. 1 and a second with no conditions. Notice there's this conditions thing. They don't tell us about it this time, but you can add conditions on that. So look at that, like time or resources, certain tags. Look at that, certain hours of the day. So you could say, oh yeah, you can have full access on Mondays from 9 until 10 and no other time, for example. Or you can have access, but it's going to expire after a certain amount. Or you can have access, but only to resources of a certain kind. There's all kinds of neat things you can do here that are just super cool, way above and beyond what most systems offer, and that would be complicated and difficult to make in other systems. So this is something that's really powerful that I just wanted to point out to you, that you can give access to a thing, but then you can limit that or gate that. So you could say, yeah, okay, you can have full access, but only during 9 to 5, and when we're around to watch. And then 2 in the morning, no, you don't have access. You could do that with a schedule like this, and then by hour of the day. And then you could also add a condition that has to be certain days of the week. So maybe Monday through Friday, and maybe just 9 to 5, for example. So some of the most secure things in the world are limited with time locks, where even if you've got the key, even if you've got the combination, you still can't get in unless you're coming in at the right time. And that itself is a whole nother story. So hit continue there, and now it says then should click done. So I will click done, and we'll have ourselves a service account. And you can see here it is, BigQuery-Qwiklab. And it has no keys. So maybe they'll have us make keys, maybe not. Let's see. Next, they want us to create a virtual machine, and we'll call BigQuery instance. Okay, I'm going to copy that because I know they're going to want that. They're going to want the name. So we're going to go make a VM, a virtual machine, running on a Google server in Iowa. And then we'll set that up in Iowa, zone 1A, and it'll be an N1 standard 1 CPU with Debian, and it'll use that BigQuery Qwiklabs service account. Okay, so this moment I'm talking a little slow because I know it might take a moment for that to show up. So let's see. So we're going to go compute engine, VM instance, create instance. Back to the navigation, compute engine, VM instances, create instance. So create a server. And then the name they want us to override, they want us to change that to be BigQuery-instance. Okay. And in Iowa, zone central, US Central 1A. Okay. And then not an E2. They wanted it to be an older first generation one that's not as expensive, an N1 standard 1. Okay. And let's see, they want it to have Debian Linux version 10, and then have the BigQuery Qwiklabs service account. So let's see, Debian Linux 10, that's right. Now let's find the service account. Compute engine default service account, or do we want to use the BigQuery Qwiklab? And yes, we do. It's right there, BigQuery-Qwiklab. We could type it in, but we don't have to because it already pre-populated. If you did want to type it in, big, look at that. As soon as I typed in big, it had showed up. So that's ready to go. And now I can hit create, just like they say. Now, once it's created, they're going to want us to SSH into that server, which is secure shell. Basically, they'll want us to connect to that server kind of like we do with this Cloud Shell. But the Cloud Shell, it's a temporary server that is only open while we're using it, versus this server, when it's running, it would just keep running until we turn it off. So this is like a real server, and down here, this is like a little temporary server. And it's not as fast as a server like that, because this is a shared resource, whereas that there is a dedicated virtual machine just for us with certain performance expectations that their hypervisor maintains. So they're gonna have us SSH. Let's see exactly their instructions. They say find that one, and then click the SSH button next to it, and we want to connect without the identity aware proxy. Okay. All right, I'll click right there on SSH. So if it asks us, then we want to choose to connect without. Uh-oh, unexpected error. That doesn't sound good. Let it retry and it'll probably work. Okay. Back to the instructions. Now we want to update the list of packages. So this is part of, if you're on a Linux system, this is like a Linux skill. Windows has Windows Update. Mac has the Apple Store and updating through that. On Linux, we're using a system called apt-get. And we're going to ask the system to run as an administrator this apt-get program that's used for getting the newest packages, newest programs. And we're going to tell that program that we want to update the system, the list of packages that it knows about. Okay, so we'll go to the SSH window, and we'll paste in sudo apt-get update. And usually you do apt-get update and then apt-get upgrade. And then if it was like a whole distribution, like version 10 to version 11, maybe it would be a apt-get dist upgrade with a dash. But for right now, we did that. We updated the list of packages. Now it's going to have us install a package called virtualenv. That's a thing that's used for Python. And you'll see that they have this Y here, which is going to make it so we won't have to hit yes, because we're basically saying yes ahead of time that we want to install it. So I'll come over here and I'll paste that command to install virtualenv. It's like I said, it's a utility program for Python. And it didn't ask us anything. That -y worked. Okay, now we're going to run that, and we're going to ask it to create for us a Python 3 environment, a virtual environment. And then we're going to activate that environment. So we're going to make a thing and then use a thing. Then inside there, we're going to install some utilities for doing data science stuff and to connect to Google's BigQuery database. So interesting things. You might not have ever done something like this before, but that's what we're going to do right now. So virtualenv, next was to run virtualenv to create a virtual environment, but not start it, just create it. So it's busy setting that up. All right. And now we're going to activate that. Okay, paste that over here. You'll notice that the address bar changed. Now it says VENV. So we're in that virtual environment where the Python, if you just ran any Python command now, it's going to be using that environment that we just made that was a Python 3. Outside, we might have been using Python 2 or 2.9 or 2, some version of Python. But in here, for sure, we're using a Python 3, and they installed setup tools and pip and wheel, a bunch of utilities related to Python in that environment. And then when we ran this source command to activate it, it switched us into that. Sounds complicated? Maybe. It depends on your level of familiarity with Python. If you're a frequent user of Python, you might do stuff like this all the time, and this might be super easy. If you're not, then this is part of we're getting used to it, not we understand it, and that's fine. So did that. I'm going to install Python 3 pip, just like they said. It's got that -y, so it didn't ask us any questions. Okay, so that's still going. And next we'll install the Google Cloud BigQuery libraries. That's one of those moments where we might have wished that they'd had us use a little bit faster server. But look at that, it just finished. Okay, so paste in the next command to install the Google Cloud BigQuery library. So in this virtual machine, in this server, we're going to have all the tools we need to run Python programs, to connect to the cloud, specifically to connect to BigQuery. And next up, we'll install PyArrow and Pandas. So we'll be able to do data science stuff in this. So we'll probably be computing something based on data that's stored in BigQuery. And if you work with a data scientist, a lot of them will be fans of Python, and a lot of them will be fans of R or SAS. There's some others as well, but R and Python are the big two. And okay, so that's installed, and Pandas and PyArrow are Python related. So we'll have some Python code that's going to talk to BigQuery. Oh, look at that. It says your service account. They're probably going to want us to go and update the service account and the project ID number, right? Now here, this is actually going to put in the project ID number for us. So that's cool. But I don't see that, I'm guessing they're going to have us manually edit this in the your service account. Oh, there they do it. That's where they're adding in the service account. So they're looking it up. Instead of having us type it in, they're going to look it up with a gcloud config get value project command. Wow, that's a slick way to do it. Okay, so back up here. So we're going to create this example file. Now they didn't tell us exactly how to create it. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it. This command, this whole thing here, from here to there, is inside double quotes. So they're going to actually have it print out all of this and store it in a file called query.py. So this command itself is going to make a file called query.py, and it's going to put all this stuff in it. That looks like magic, doesn't it? So come back over here to SSH, right click and paste, and then it's going to do just that, hit enter. And now if I do an ls, yeah, there it is. Query.py is right there, okay? So if I looked at, look at that. That was created at 23:45. Well, that's 45 minutes after the hour right now. So the time zone for this server is a little different, isn't it? This is is that London time? I suppose it would be like GMT, right? So that's in GMT. So that time is 6 hours different than the time I've got here. All right, interesting. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to add the project ID with this nifty command here, this sed command that's going to substitute where it says your project ID. It's going to trade that for the value from this command, from this gcloud config command. Let's see what that would be. I'm going to run that command separate just to see what that would do. That should give us just our project ID. Oh, look at that. It does. Just gives us the project ID. So now if we see, it's going to, in place, it's going to edit the file to the file query.py, and it's going to replace where it says your project ID with the results of this gcloud command. That'll be pretty nifty. Okay, now we're going to look at that with cat. Paste that out, and you can see, look at that. The project ID number has been changed. Your service account up here, though, hasn't been changed. So next we're going to do that. Again with sed. Sed is a stream editor. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like, basically, if I was a sed and you told me, hey, replace every E with the letter B. So just add those two little humps to make a letter E into the letter B. And then you gave me a document to work on, then I would look through that document and I would find, if I'm working as that program, I'd find every E and I would change them to B, because that's the instruction. No matter how long, no matter how many pages, I would do that on every single one. And I would, as I finish it, I would pass it on to the next command. Now, in this case, there is no next command. It's got this modifier here that's telling it to do that to this whole file and just like leave it in place. So just take the book, make those changes, and then just leave it. Don't give it to anybody else. It's just done. Leave it where it was with the same name and everything. It's kind of a dangerous thing to do if you don't know what you're doing. So when you're working with sed at the beginning, learn a bit more about it first before you start to use it on your own projects, or at least don't use it with the -i. -i changes the file that you gave it as the input. So that's kind of a dangerous thing. Okay, copy this, paste that, and then that'll get the service account changed. And now up at the top, look at that. The service account email is changed. So that's the real one. And we didn't have to edit it by hand. We let the system do it for us, which was kind of cool. Now we're going to run that command, and it's going to get some data from BigQuery, and it's going to do some analysis, which is kind of cool. So it's going to convert that to a data frame, and it doesn't have a module named data types. Huh. Well, why did that not work? Let's see what they asked us to do. So I think I installed all of those pieces, PyArrow and Pandas. Did I forget any of those? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the history. And then I'm going to look and see if I had installed PyArrow. I did. Pandas. I did. Git and Python 3 pip. Yep. Looks like I did all of the things in the same order that they asked us to. So did any of those give us errors? That's an interesting question. So I install the Google Cloud BigQuery, and then PyArrow. Oh, it says that's already satisfied. We already have PyArrow, and we already have NumPy. Okay, install pandas. It says it's getting that. Oh, look at that. You already have NumPy and dateutil and these different pieces. Successfully installed pandas. So what do we do now? We tried the command they told us to run, and it gave us an error. Now I'm going to hit check my progress. That doesn't look right because it gave us an error, but it actually still gave us the points. So this is one where we're going to want to give feedback on this lab, telling them that the final command, it didn't work, but we still got the points. So I guess we're happy, but we're also sad. We're sad that the command didn't work, but we're happy that we got the points. Now, the only reason that that virtual machine in the SSH there was able to talk to BigQuery was because we had already set up a service account and given it access to BigQuery. Now, if we didn't do that, that would have failed, but it wouldn't have failed in this particular way. It would have failed in a different way, because this error was just saying that that we couldn't. Yeah, there's no module called database data types. And it says we need to install that function, that package to use this function. Let's try to do that. The error exactly says, please install the DB dtypes package to use this function. Well, why don't we try that? Let's see. So I'll copy that name exactly, and I'll try to pip install that and see if that fixes it. Paste that in. Now that installed. So let's try the command again. So now it worked. So that's a case, look at that, of read the error message and be willing to think on your feet. Now, I'm sitting down right now, but still, be willing to think on your feet so that you can troubleshoot around problems. Sometimes there are mistakes. Sometimes somebody thought that something was going to be installed, but it wasn't. Now, it looks like that was related to PyArrow, look at that, and it was related to pandas, but it was still something that wasn't included in either of those. So maybe when they wrote up the instructions, they just forgot that one line, right? So if you pip install db types, that's the extra piece you need. Then that Python query.py will work, and it'll talk to BigQuery, and it gathered some data, and it printed it out neatly for us, sorted by year. I'm going to copy that command so that I can paste that into my comments when I close the lab. So we passed this lab, but it doesn't feel like this lab is perfect. We want to tell them how to make this lab a little bit better. So when I hit end lab, I am going to say submit, because I got 100 points, so I know I passed. All right, and with that, now we have the first, second, and third labs done on this quest.
Let's go ahead and hit start lab. I'll go log through 5 credits. All right, so just an overview. The Google Cloud VPC Network Peering allows private connectivity across 2 VPC networks of whether or not they belong to the same project or the same organization. Basically allows us to build SaaS or software as a service ecosystems in cloud, making services available privately across different VPC networks within and across organizations, allowing workloads to communicate in a private space, usually for businesses that have private information or resources that are needed within the business itself. So useful for organizations with several network administrative domains or organizations that want to peer with other organizations. And if you have multiple network administrative domains within your organization, VPC Network Peering allows you to make services available across VPC networks in a private space. And some advantages would be basically network latency, security, and also cost for it to be cheaper. Right, let's go ahead and open up Google Console. All right, I've got my incognito window right here. Let's go ahead and copy password. All right, so basically what we're gonna do in this lab is, do we have it set up here? I guess it doesn't really say what we're gonna do. Oh wait, we have 2 projects, and then we're gonna try to have them kind of communicate within each other, to each other, and they're gonna be under the same umbrella of a VPC network, basically. Let's go ahead and start by setting up the VPC network peering. So let's start with the first project as a project A and second as project B. For managing 2 projects, start a new Cloud Shell by clicking on the plus icon. And we're just going to set our project 2 to be, project ID 2 to be our main project. Okay, provisioning Cloud Shell real quick. So it's just going to be gcloud config set project, and then we're going to use the project ID number 2. And backspace this. So remember to replace the placeholder of project ID 2 to your actual GCP project ID 2. We go here, enter. Then we're going to go back to our first Cloud Shell and create a custom network. Oh, I think we might have to open it twice. Let's see. Oh, it does not say. That's interesting. Okay. So we're just gonna have 2 Cloud Shells to work with. Authorized. Gonna add another one. And we have this as. Alright, so you just want to make sure that you know which is your project A and project B. There we go. We're gonna go into project A here. And then it's gonna say we're gonna create a custom network. So basically we're gonna say gcloud compute networks, create network A, where the subnet mode is custom. And we're gonna go ahead and create a subnet within this and specify a region and IP range using this command. And then it shows that the VPC network has been set up. Let's go ahead and copy this command to create a subnet. We're going to paste it here, enter. Then we're going to create a VM instance under this project, which is project A. And it said created. Okay, great. And then let's go ahead and create our VM instance by specifying a few things that we definitely need, which is your zone and the VPC network and its subnet, just to make sure that it's in the same VPC. Then afterwards, we're gonna go ahead and enable SSH and ICMP because we need a secure shell to communicate within the VMs. Right, let's go ahead and create a firewall rule to allow SSH and ICMP. And hit enter. Then we're gonna set our project B in the same way. So it's just probably gonna be, right, the same except some of the variables having a new name or a different name. Checking my progress, and a VM has been created in the subnet in the same VPC network. Let's go into our project B. Let's go ahead and continue on with the steps. We're going to create the VPC network, and then we're going to create a subnet within this VPC, whereby the range is different from the other project. Let me copy this and paste. You can see that it's also in a different region. Oh wait, no, it's in the same region. All right, then we're gonna go ahead and create a VM instance afterwards and also enable SSH and ICMP. Then we're gonna look at setting up the VPC network peering session and basically check if the connection has been established. Okay, so VM instance and then firewall rule. Let's go ahead and look forward into the VPC network peering session real quick. So consider an organization which needs VPC network peering to be established between network A and project A and network B in project B. In order for VPC network peering to be established successfully, administrators of network A and network B must separately configure the peering association. All right. At the same time, I'm going to go ahead and create a firewall rule and enter. So we're going to go ahead and look at peering network A with network B by looking into the VPC network peering resource. All right, once it's done, make sure you just go ahead and check your progress and assessment completed. Cool. So let's go ahead and peer network A with network B. We're going to go ahead and select the correct project in the console before you apply the settings. Do that by clicking down arrow next to the project ID at the top of the screen and selecting which project ID you need, basically over here. So you just want to make sure you remember which is, you're gonna select all and make sure that you select the right project. So we're going to work in project A, which is, for me, it's going to be 5E15E. So I'm going to open that. Let's go ahead and look at VPC network peering. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and create a connection. Let me also minimize this. All right, let's click continue. So the name is going to be peer AB. And under VPC network, we're going to select network A. So network A was basically the network that was created for project A. And then we're going to set the peer VPC network in another project. And our other project is basically the ID of project B. You want to go ahead and copy it and paste it. And the VPC network name is going to be network B. Go ahead and click on create. We're going to leave everything else as default. And also heads up, the peering state will remain inactive because there is no matching configuration in project B. So let's go ahead and check if network A is peering with network B. Okay, assessment completed. Now we're going to do the same, but for project B instead. So we're going to go ahead and switch to the second project. Just make sure you select the right project. So under all, it's going to be the other one. I'm going to say open. We're going to say create connection. And then for this, they're naming it peer BA, the opposite of AB. And then we're going to click network B in another project. Project ID is going to be project A. VPC network name is going to be network A. And then we're going to go ahead and click on create. And now the network peering becomes active as both configurations for project A and project B have been set up. And as soon as the peering moves to an active state, traffic flows are set up between VM instances in the peer networks with full mesh connectivity and from VM instances in one network to internal load balancing endpoints in the peer network. If you want to go ahead and see the picture, that's how it kind of looks like. And let's see. Yeah, all right. Then we're gonna go ahead and check if this routes to peer network CIDR prefixes are not visible across the VPC network peers. And we can also go ahead and list routes for all VPC networks for project A. I'm just gonna go ahead and use the Cloud Shell for project A, which is 5E. And we're just gonna type out gcloud compute routes list project and then project A. All right, showing that there are a bunch of routes for this network. And if you look at it, let's see if I see anything interesting. Basically, there is the peering route for network A. Let's go ahead and check our progress. And it's worked. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and run a connectivity test and make sure at this point in time you should have received full marks for this lab. We're just gonna go ahead and try to ping each other's VM instances from the other project. So let's go ahead and go back into project A. Oops. Click on this. Okay, and project A, we're just gonna go ahead and navigate into the VM instance. Where's my? So under compute engine, it's gonna be VM instances. And let's go ahead and copy the internal IP for this VM that was created. There will be a copy to clipboard icon that you can click on, so just make sure you do that. Let's go ahead and go back into project B. And then we're just going to SSH into this VM instance. Let's try establish a connection. There we go. So let's go ahead and ping VMA, which is under A. It's going to be ping C5, and then paste the internal IP of VMA. Just go ahead and hit enter, and it's just going to go ahead and continue running, basically showing that connectivity is well connected per se. And you basically successfully set up your first VPC network. That's actually the end of the lab. That was a very fast lab. I think that was 10 minutes or so.
Thanks again for attending the School of Cloud. Now check out some of our other videos, and see you back next time.